We are going to be showing you how to build this whiteboard for just under $35. These clips and these bins were all 3D printed, and the files, free files, will be in the description below. However, if you don't have a 3D printer, you can still make this whiteboard with the parts just from the hardware store. So let's get into it.
So we are going to find the studs. You could mount a whiteboard just connecting into drywall anchors. I really don't like drywall anchors. They put larger holes in your wall than you need to, so when you go to take them out, they don't look good. So I really prefer finding the studs, but normal stud finders are a real pain in the butt.
Where are studs?
So behind this wall, so this wall is made out of drywall. This is actually a small piece of drywall. It's not actually very solid, and it's screwed up here onto pieces of wood. This is a stud. This is a 2x4 piece of wood. And so you have these things that are in the wall that go bottom to top. And then there are screws holding the drywall to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the studs by finding the screws. Simple, cheap way to do that is to use strong magnets, all right? And I always start right by an outlet because there's a stud next to it on one side or the other. Because that box, almost always, there are some exceptions, but that box is connected to a piece of wood on one side or the other, okay? So we start here and we get moving. That's a piece of metal right there, which is a screw, most likely. So then we're gonna go straight down. There's the next one. Now, the next stud, they're normally about 16 inches apart unless it's a really cheap house. And also, normally the nails or screws are pretty much in line. So we're just gonna go straight over about 16 inches, and there's the next one. You can use the same trick in the ceiling. So now, super fast, I've marked out exactly where the studs are, and now I can plan out my work.
BTB. Let me just do a little bit of movement. Like you're about to get ready for the montage.
Okay, so this thing is 8 foot long. You can do a whiteboard, a full whiteboard that's absolutely 8 foot by 4 foot. Not a problem. Our space is not wide enough for an 8 foot wide whiteboard. So we're gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna save the smaller one as a separate whiteboard, and we'll do that in a different project. But first thing I wanna do is I'm gonna make it 6 feet long. And what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna measure 2 foot and then cut off 2 feet. I'm gonna measure from over here, and we're gonna measure 6 feet over. And then to make it more accurate, I'm gonna grab my handy dandy tape right here, and I'm going to mark. So slap that back on our tape holder. I'm gonna mark it with a pencil so it's a lot finer. All right, gonna come to the other side and do the same thing. All right, gonna grab our tape. We're just gonna put a little piece right there. Slap that back on our tape holder so we know where it's at. Got our pencil. And we're gonna mark it in pencil so it's nice and fine. In order to make sure that this edge stays really nice when I cut through it with the saw, I'm gonna actually grab my tape again and put a full line on it. Then, to prevent the track saw from going anywhere, we're gonna then tape over it with this brown paper. That'll protect it. I'll show you how it all works. Back on our tape holder.
Nice work.
So we can set that aside, grab our tape.
So why did you have to do this part again?
I just want to use this to protect this top surface. I don't want it to get scratched up. So we want to do the best we can to keep this surface nice and clean and pristine while we're going through the process of cutting it down. If you're not cutting it down, obviously you don't have to worry about any of this. Ooh.
Leaky.
Look how nice that edge is.
It's like perfect.
Now we're gonna cover this up. What I'm gonna do is mark 45. So pencil. So I did try this with the Milwaukee shears, and they do work, but it was a little bit difficult. So I'm gonna use EMT shears. Just cut through it carefully. Certainly is cheaper than, you know, a chop saw. Now what you see is the face side, right? So I'm going to cut the back just a little bit more. You know, another thing that might work is a really sharp utility blade. That's not a bad idea. We'll try cutting this one, tape it. Let's see here. All right, now I'm gonna try cutting from the front to the back this time, just see if it works better. Give it a little more attention. What do we think?
Hopefully it worked well.
As with a lot of projects, there's more than one way to do the job. What we decided to do for mounting it was to set pieces of blue tape at a consistent height from the floor, using our magnets as a guide to see where those studs should be. Then we used a very long level, because we had it, to mark that level point all the way across. That gives us a really good reference for where we need to put in the clips. The clips were just ready off the printer, so I grabbed a handful.
What I'm going to do, just to make it easier, is I know since I designed this, this is completely square, so I can start it like this, and when we roll it up, it'll be perfect. So I'm just going to line it up with that line and hope I don't drop anything. That's how you know it's a stud.
It's loud.
It is quite loud. I'm going to pull our blue tape while I can.
Since we put all the bottom clips in first, we were able to bring in the board that had the bottom trim in place and just rested on those clips. I put a small piece of temporary trim on the top and then marked with blue tape where that stud should be, pulled the magnet, and then I could mount a top clip in order to hold it in place while we got everything else positioned and got all of the trim where we wanted it to be. So after we got all that, it was hands-free, and then it was just a bit of adjusting. Let's talk about sourcing and parts. So I found both the whiteboard and the edging on Home Depot. You can see the skew right here, and also you can see where it's located in your local Home Depot. This is an 8-foot long, 4-foot wide board. You can look under this title and then find it in the appropriate aisle. The edging is actually located in the same location. You can see the skew here, but they're normally in the same aisle in all different Home Depots because they're normally used together. I have the prices here. I used 3 of the edging pieces, so in total that all works out to be $28.32 plus tax, plus a few dollars for printer material or clips if you use those. All that comes down to less than $35. I wanted to know what the best surface treatment was for this, not really a whiteboard, or really any whiteboard in general. So I did a little bit of research online and thought about it myself and came up with several different products. I used the cut end piece from the actual board, cleaned it off with isopropyl alcohol, and then treated it with all 4 of the different contestants. They were turtle wax or carnauba wax, a Rain X preparation, it's the Ceramic X, a whiteboard retreatment product that I had purchased off of Amazon, and WD-40.
So just on feel, that one feels slippery, that one feels slippery. Not so much. Pretty slippery.
After leaving it a little while, I did the erase test where I got a piece of paper towel and went through and erased it. The WD-40 erased very well, leaving almost no ghosting at all. Maybe barely noticeable if you really stared at it hard. The whiteboard cleaning product that was specifically for this purpose left very noticeable ghosting and was actually the worst of the bunch. Compared to WD-40, you can see how bad it was. The Rain-X did pretty well. There was a little bit of ghosting. If you were to put a little more elbow grease in it, it disappeared pretty well. But not quite as good as the WD-40. But still better than a dry erase. Lastly, the carnauba wax or turtle wax erased okay. There was a little bit of ghosting. It was still better than the whiteboard product, but it was not as good as the Rain-X or the WD-40. In order to collect more data, I did another round where I wrote more on the board and then did an immediate erase just to see what it would look like. The Rain-X, again, did pretty well. And the carnauba wax didn't do quite as well. There was still noticeable ghosting on the board as I erased it. You can still see it here. But the WD-40 did really, really well. Almost completely erased, almost invisible. So I would rank them as WD-40 was definitely the best, followed by Rain-X, followed by Turtle Wax, and the actual specific product was really the worst. I also designed and printed these little marker bins that hold onto the edge. You can check these out, remix them. They'll be up on Thangs. You'll be able to see the link through the blog post down below. It actually has 2 sets of magnets, one on each edge of the corner. And then because it was the best in my testing, I got out the WD-40 and made sure that I applied it to the entire board. I used gloves, sprayed it onto the paper towel, and then worked the paper towel into the board, making sure that I had really, really good coverage everywhere. I hope that you found this video super useful, and I hope you consider maybe making this project, or maybe it gives you some ideas for a different project that you were thinking about. So after wiping in the WD-40, I got the microfiber cloth and rubbed it out to make sure that it was dry everywhere and there wasn't any pooling of the WD-40. I got the red marker to draw in. Red tends to be a little bit harder to erase, and I'll show you the erase test here. It erased very cleanly. I hope you found this video very useful, and we'll see you on the next one.
Did you want to do the...
Here you go, butter.
Okay.
Ooh. So I apologize for the echo. It is an empty hallway, so